Thought program. But before doing that, just to introduce tonight's guest speaker, His Holiness Ramapad Swami. So Ramapad Swami has been a monk and a spiritual leader for just over 50 years now, so dedicated a large part of his life to seeking the essence of this spiritual wisdom and living his life and sharing that with others. So we're very grateful to you for coming here with all of your other responsibilities and commitments. And so we can count ourselves as some of the lucky individuals that gets to hear. Otherwise, he's speaking at large, well-known corporations like Microsoft, for example, or prestigious universities, like Northwestern, MIT, and IIT. So tonight he's going to be speaking on a topic related to the Bhagavad Gita. It's an outgrowth of the session from last week. That's also why I was asking a little bit of who was here last week, where we were talking about the spirit of questioning why, who am I, why do I do what I do, just that basic foundation. And a logical outcome of asking why is, okay, if I am to work with a certain set of standards or a certain set of understandings, there must be some kind of guidebook, a manual, something that can help me to make those choices as I navigate this process of asking why. And so with that in mind, I'd like to turn it over to Ramapad Swami. So thank you so much for coming here to IIT. We're very grateful to you for coming.
I recognize a few faces, and most of you we haven't met yet. But let's spend some time together and see what happens. Is it safe to assume you all have a really basic idea of Bhagavad Gita? Maybe we'll say it negatively. Does somebody feels they see the cover of the book, but they don't know what's inside? No response. Okay. Can the lights go down so you can see the picture better?
It's one of those.
Okay. Krishna and Arjuna on the Kurukshetra battle, and it looks like they're ready to go. They already had their Bhagavad Gita. They're going to the next chapter of Mahabharata. There's many ways to describe what Bhagavad Gita is. Here's some. It's a treatise on self-realization. It's a description of the yoga ladder, a system of yoga that leads to beyond birth and death. And getting to the place in the journey of the soul to being with Krishna eternally. Mame kam sharanam. So, to understand Bhagavad Gita better, there was an idea. The idea was kind of a collaboration between some professors at Oxford University, and they're reaching out to some people like me, not me, but some people like me that move in the public, because Oxford University has an ivory tower picture of how to teach Bhagavad Gita and what it means, and then there's people like me that mingle with everyday people a lot. So there was an idea, a collaboration between Oxford University folks and a few others to present Bhagavad Gita in a very simple form. And after discussing what that simple form might look like, they came up with the Gita values. Now there's many values in Bhagavad Gita, but they decided to identify 6. They're sequential. And little paragraph, refined it, so there's a little paragraph for each of those 6 values. And that's what I'm going to be speaking about this evening. Hopefully you received a PDF with those 6 values. If anyone didn't, you can see him, because he'll make sure that you get a copy or put your name on the list or whatever the procedure is. So I'm not going to read out what those 6 are, even the first one. We're going to cover the first one. I'm just going to speak mainly about the concept behind it. So another way of describing Bhagavad Gita, self-realization, is there, along with self-realization, a lifestyle of self-realization, there's culture, spiritual culture. And with spiritual culture, there's values. So how does that work? Somebody I know, nice person, did his PhD in organizational structures. There was some terminology that's nice, but I don't know what organizational structures. And he gave a presentation on the culture of an organization. He was using that to speak about, our organization, our spiritual organization. And to help understand it, there were 2 metaphors. One that I liked especially, I'm going to show you right now. The iceberg of culture. Supposing, for example, a company buys out another company, and they want to get started with how we want to run this company. So they call it the culture of the organization. And there's different parts, or for a group of people, maybe the university, or maybe a family, or maybe an individual. There's the iceberg of culture. So that's the application is many, but it's one iceberg. So there's 3 main parts to an iceberg. The part that's visible above the surface of the water. So the iceberg of culture has things that are tangible, perceivable by the senses. Just like, driving into this campus. Buildings look a little different than some other campus, look a little different than some other campus. With the structures, with the architecture, there's a certain culture that goes with it. And anyway, behavior, symbols, or anything that comes in touch with the senses. Think perceivable, measurable features of a culture of somebody or a group of people. That's the tip of the iceberg part. And then there's the big part of the iceberg that's below the tip of the iceberg, below the surface of the water. So directly below that is values of, let's say, an organization or group of people. Their official beliefs. I don't know if you've been through this with an organization. You go through this exercise of what's your mission statement, and what we say or I say or whatever. What's important? What's a value that we hold? And naturally, the visible part influences the value part. The value part drives the behavior part. They're interactive. One influences the other. And then there's another part down here, because values can change, but there's some things that are unchanging. Deeply held beliefs, it doesn't matter, time, place, circumstance, it's just a fact. It's a reality that doesn't change. Let's just say, for example, for Bhagavad Gita, there's values, but there's, say, a deeply held implicit conviction is we're a spiritual spark, we're an Atma, we're a living entity, different than the body, fundamental. So in the course of life, values may change, behaviors may change, but that doesn't change. Lifetime after lifetime, it doesn't change. It's an unchanging reality. And it's certain, it's a given. Wherever there's life, there's a soul. Wherever there's a soul, it's unchanging. It's not influenced by anything material. It's Bhagavad Gita teaching. So we're going to focus on, this Gita values focuses on values, but just bear in mind the different parts of spiritual culture, and they influence one another. A few other things. Bhagavad Gita is a book of, I often use this when I speak in China. It's a wisdom literature, because there's certain buzzwords in China you're not supposed to use. So it's called wisdom literature. And it's because they have wisdom literature. And there's lots of overlap of the wisdom. There's some things missing too, but there's lots of overlap in their wisdom, Chinese wisdom. It's one of the things that makes it really easy for people from the eastern part of the world to accept Bhagavad Gita, because the wisdom matches. And it's wisdom that's applied as opposed to information. So I've said this many, many times. Some years ago, I was in India when, something like 9 years ago, when there was a national conference of educators held in Delhi, and they wanted to evaluate how we're doing in the realm of education. And they had a plan. The keynote speaker said, education in India today can be summarized in 5 words. And it fits IIT. Information, 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 no transformation. So their idea from this conference in Delhi was to invite, they had some government money involved in making grants for people who could produce really good, they called it value education, didn't call it spiritual, value education, because you got to appeal to everybody, value education that teaches transformation, or the byproduct of it is transformation. So Bhagavad Gita values, and the whole literature is, there's information, but it's much more than information. It's information, it's like jnana and vijnana. Jnana is knowledge, like this, and then there's applied, you go to your lab and you take something theoretical and you test it out. So applied, and then what happens when it's valid, when it's real knowledge, then something happens. You get result. You get some realization. So this is Bhagavad Gita. It's in this category, not simply information. So when you listen to the wisdom part, not just the information part. One more kind of introduction is the idea that Bhagavad Gita is presenting is over here, and unfortunately most of us are not there yet. We're over here. There's a big gap between where we are and what we believe, or what we have convictions in, or what we wish to achieve. And that gap, this is a Latin word, it's a liminal space. To me it's like Sanskrit, because many of you know Sanskrit words. Until I started contacting the Vedas, I didn't know Sanskrit words. I couldn't even pronounce Bhagavad Gita. Well, I didn't know how to pronounce it. So, liminal means in between this and that. Using it as just because this and that, where we are, where we want to go. When you enter into a building in very, commonly with a bathroom, there's the inside of the bathroom, there's the outside, or there's the outdoors, and there's the indoors, and there's a kind of a strip where the door closes the door tightly. On the floor, that's called a limen. That's a carpentry term. In an architectural term, liminal space is where it's neither indoors nor outdoors, kind of like a porch or breezeway, or the place where Hiranyakashipu was killed, with neither indoors nor outdoors. So that's the liminal space. So the idea, reason I'm bringing this up is, transitioning from where you are to where you want to go